Laszlo Birinyi, which of these numbers, if any, is the one to watch for the 1997 markets?
I think probably inflation. That would be the thing, that a real dramatic shift that would scare the markets probably more than anything else.
Do you think we're likely to see it?
I don't think so, but that would be the one I would watch most closely.
As long as those numbers continue to behave reasonably well, you think we're all right? But how high would they have to get, do you think?
I don't think it's a matter of how high. It's a matter of if it's a big shock. I mean, if someone is looking for the CPI to be 0.1 or 0.2 one month, and it comes out 0.4 or 0.5 on that particular month, that would be discomforting to the markets.
So the stock market is still in hock to the bond market?
To some degree, yes.
John Dessar, what do you think?
I would get a little bit more pointed with it and say interest rates specifically are probably the thing to watch. We had an interest rate scare that gave us the slump in July in '96. I think we may get another one that'll give us a slump somewhere along in 1997, but I think at the end of the day we're going to find out that inflation is going to stay low, the economy is going to grow more slowly than expected, and if anything we're going to get a dip in official short-term interest rates and lower rates at the long end as well.
So you think that while there'll be scares along the way, by this time next year rates will be lower than they are now?
I do. I think the bond will probably, long-term Treasury bond rates, 30-year bond rates should be down around 6% by a year from today.
Allison Deans, what are you looking at?
I'm looking at economic growth because there's both a risk of inflation but also a risk of recession. And looking at how the economy is doing will give people a sense of which direction we're heading in. Right now we've been in an idyllic environment, keeping a perfect balance. But I think people never believe that can last for very long.
What do you expect for growth?
I expect growth to pick up in the first half of the year, but potentially slow. The bond market's been a really good mechanism for correcting any pickup in growth. So I think the first half will be strong, but slow down a lot in the second half of the year.
Lou Holland?
I think interest rates. I think interest rates are going to move lower. I think that the economy is going to also slow down. This should be very positive for stocks. Obviously, expectations for interest rates and inflation, I'd be focusing on the labor cost index to determine whether or not inflation is getting out of hand.
In other words, as long as wages continue to behave, you're okay, but if the average guy starts to make a living, you're worried?
I'm worried.
All right, now comes the moment of truth when we turn the spotlight on what these folks said 12 months ago. Laszlo Birinyi, your remarkable stock-picking ability has earned you your 4th year-end appearance in 5 years, and that's an unprecedented achievement since the current competitive rules were established. So congratulations. You were a tad too cautious about the overall market, predicting a Dow high of only 5,700, but you were hardly alone in that. None of our 22 panelists thought the Dow would rise above 6,200, which was Harvey Eisen's prediction. And you were the most pessimistic of all with your prediction that the Dow would close at 4,500, which is off as of now by a mere 2,000 points or so. Still close enough for government work, I suppose. And of course, we still have next Monday and Tuesday to go. But the skill we really honor on this New Year's show is stock picking, and the bottom line is that your investment selections led the pack, according to our friends at Bloomberg Financial Markets, who regularly calculate all these figures, especially for us. Your average gain was a whopping 55.5%, or more than double the total return of the S&P 500. You also had the single most profitable idea. Your BJ Services warrants rose more than 262%. And your FPA medical management wasn't too shabby either, gaining more than 153%. So congratulations, old buddy. Indeed, imagine how well you would have done if you hadn't let your cautious instincts lead you to the negative recommendation of selling short a stock, Cascade Communications, that has confounded you by nearly doubling. Well, even you can't win them all. Keep it up. John Dessar, welcome back to your 2nd consecutive year-end program. You had the 2nd best high prediction for 96 of 60-50. You could hardly have come closer on your low prediction with 50-30. That was the highest of any of the forecasts, and it was less than 3 points from the actual closing low of 50-32.94 on January 10th. You win the close, too. Your 6,000 prediction was off by about 10%, to be sure, but it was still the highest of any panelists. And when it comes to specific recommendations, your portfolio was up an impressive 46.5%, including 2 stocks, Showtime Pizza and Bally Entertainment, that more than doubled. So you're on a roll. Keep it up. Allison Deans, in just your 2nd year as a panelist, you already earned a year-end appearance. But it's a good thing, to be frank, that we looked at your investment selections rather than at your Dow Jones Industrial Average prognostications. You were just too gloomy, including the 2nd lowest of all the high forecasts for the Dow, 5,500, which missed by just 1,000 or so points. You've got to cheer up a bit, Allison. But that didn't stop you from recommending a dozen stocks whose average return was an imposing 37.5%, including APAC Teleservices, one of 8 stocks picked by our panel that have more than doubled since last New Year's. So now you have another reason to smile. Congratulations. Lou Holland, this is the 3rd time you have earned a place on our All-Star Year-End program. Nice to have you back. Congratulations. Your 10-stock portfolio is currently running just 2/100ths of a percentage point behind Allison's. Perhaps you two could duke it out later. Your Dow predictions, while too restrained, like those of all the other panelists in '96, at least avoided any really ridiculous extremes. So keep on showing us how to play this game. Congratulations. But enough of this mush. What have they done for us lately? For starters, in our annual triumph of hope over experience, let's have from each of you the true inside word on the highest close, the lowest close, and the closing close, the final close, for the Dow Jones Industrial Average in 1997. And this time, gang, let's try and get it right. Laszlo?
Well, Lou, I think the market's going to continue to surprise us. I'm going to go out and say that the high will be 8,050. The low will be not too far from here at 6,450, and will close at 7,750.
John?
I'm not nearly as optimistic. I have a high of 7,200, a low of 6,050, and a close of 7,050.
Not exactly gloomy.
And I'm not too different from John. I'm at 7,250 for the high, 6,000 for the low, and 7,000 for the close.
And I fall pretty much into the same camp. 7160 for the high, a little lower, 5808 on the low, and a close of 6171.
Sounds like an exciting year. All righty. Well, one thing is for sure, and this is my only personal, unqualified guarantee. At least some of them will be wrong.